Hey y'all, it's Kim from Chim and Cad. I'm here to celebrate the summer with you. I've got a strawberry champagne cocktail ready to go. Cheers. So, the Tony Awards are over. Merrily We Roll Along has left. So I want to celebrate some summer shows that have come out. And these are both limited runs, so you have until middle of August and middle of September to see these. So you've probably heard that Oh Mary is getting lots of buzz. We were able to see this off-Broadway in a smaller theater. Of course, we know Broadway theaters are 500 seats or more. Off-Broadway is between 100 to 499. Off-Broadway would be less than 100. So this started downtown in the Lucille Lortel Theater, and it was brilliant. Everybody loved it. It was a really hard ticket to come by. They extended, I think, 2 times, and then of course announced that they were going to transfer to Broadway for a limited time. The star of the show and also the writer is Cola Scola. So my shirt is also the cover of the playbill, and people will stop in the street thinking it's Wednesday Addams. It's not. You might know Cola Scola from At Home with Amy Sedaris, doing some sketch comedy. They have lots of characters that they do. They've also been on Difficult People, which I love. I think that's probably still on Hulu. And Search Party. And I think they were just in the last season of Search Party, but a very impactful character to the plot if you've watched that one. So here we are at the last showing off-Broadway. I was able to get a picture, and they were very nice and generous. So that's always nice to know. So about Oh Mary, a story about Mary Todd Lincoln. And it's not historically accurate, of course, but it's hilarious. And one of my worries from going to off-Broadway to Broadway, just being in a bigger theater, is that it wouldn't come across the same way. But actually, when you get more people in the room laughing at the same things, it becomes funnier. So that was a nice phenomenon that I hadn't experienced. I was also worried that the sound might be not as good, but when we were at the Lortel downtown, we sat second row, like center, and we were very close to all the actors on stage. And in Broadway, we sat second row mezzanine. We could hear everything, see everything. I do think this is one of those shows that you want to sit as close as possible to see their faces, especially Cola Scola does a lot as an actor with their face. So the closer you can see that, probably the funnier it might be. Also starring in Oh Mary is Conrad Ricamora, who just came off of his run in Here Lies Love. And quick story, he was supposed to go to Titanic at the New York City Center, and when they announced this coming to Broadway, he had to pull out of that, and one of his co-stars from Here Lies Love actually took his spot. And so you can see that in a talkback that we have posted about Titanic. So watch that video there. So I don't want to give away too much with Oh Mary because it's one of those shows that you just have to see it. The comedy is hilarious. The storyline, plotline is hilarious. It ends with a bang. It actually makes sense. If any of you saw Fat Ham that ran, this actually does something similar, but whereas people left Fat Ham not understanding what happened at the end, this one just makes perfect sense. And is a joy to watch. Oh Mary plays until September 12th, unless they do any extensions this time. So if you can get a ticket, it's well worth it. The second show I wanted to talk about is Cats, the Jellicle Ball. And this is playing at the Performing Arts Center, the Perlman Arts Center downtown. So this is across from the 9/11 memorials. It's in a beautiful building. And I actually took a lot of video and pictures. I think I might do a video just showing you the Performing Arts Center and the different configurations. This was our 3rd time I think that we've been, and every time the seating and staging is totally different. So one fun thing that I got at the merchandise stand was this fan, and it's perfect for Pride Month that just happened, but also because it's so hot right now in New York City. So they use a lot of the fans in the show as well. So let's talk about this production of Cats. I honestly have never seen Cats live. I've had tickets to see Cats and didn't end up going. My husband went and left during intermission because it was not a great production. Of course, you've seen, the movie that came out a few years ago that was just riddled with all kinds of criticism. And on its own, Cats was at one time the longest running musical on Broadway. But it's always been a little confounding as far as the plot line and what's actually happening. So this is an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, and it's based on poems from T.S. Eliot. So right there already you're thinking, like how does that make a storyline? And the answer has been over the years, again, with me not seeing it, but having read a lot of the criticism and the reviews, the answer has always been it's not necessarily a storyline because these are cats representing these individual poems, this collection of poems together. But I will say the Jellicle Ball really does justice to Cats. The music is the same, but it gives what could be a storyline without being a complete plot, at least gives a little structure to the story. So this Cats is set without anybody being a cat, first of all. So there are no cats on stage, but some of the costumes nod to fur and feline, things, so to speak. And so you get a little bit of that without it being like full costume cats. So they tell you that up front. There's a nice thing to read online that tells you all about it. The biggest part of this production, though, is that it's set in the ballroom culture from New York City. So this is predominantly gay and drag dancers. A lot of them are Black or Latino that for 50 years have had this sort of underground dance competition. Most importantly, though, this was a culture of acceptance and love and safety. So many people found refuge within the ballroom culture. They had houses that they were part of, and it became their own home, full of love and acceptance. Also notably, the dance Vogue that was popularized by Madonna actually started in the ballroom dancing culture in New York City. You can see this culture in the documentary Paris is Burning, if you've seen that, or in the show Pose with Billy Porter. And then what's nice about this is the choreographers, especially, and the director really brought people together for this cast. So some of the cast are from true ballroom culture. They aren't Broadway stars. They didn't go and get a master's degree in fine arts or dance somewhere, but then others in the cast are. So it makes such a nice mix of singers and dancers and authentic characters that weren't just trained to do this for the stage, but really do this in real life. So probably the biggest star of the show is Andre DeShields, and it's definitely worth the ticket price to see him in all of his glory. He's Old Deuteronomy, and he comes out in a wig that's really kind of like almost lioness, again, a nod to the idea of cats without being dressed as a cat. Anytime he did anything, it was a standing ovation. So the first time he comes out very regal, he's like the head judge of the competition, and it takes him a while on purpose to walk down the stage and to his judge's seat where there's like a throne waiting for him. Let's talk about the set of this one. It's a runway where the performers are dancing, and that's where they're being judged by their competition. At the end of the runway, there's a table with 3 judges. Sometimes there are 2 guest judges that are famous. I know that the performance after we were there was when Renee Elise Goldsberry and Ariana DeBose were guest judges. But there's always Andre DeShields as the head judge, sitting in the throned seat. And then the performers don't just stay on the runway. They go in and out of the audience. There's a little bit of a cabaret seating with tables. There's some bench seating. And then, of course, there's like the regular audience seating next to the runway, and constantly the performers are up and down the stairs, interacting with the audience, and you can see them sitting with the people at the cabaret seating and the bench seating, dancing in the stairs, etc. There is an orchestra seat that is less interactive, so if you just want to view it from straight on, you could use those seats. And then there are some seats higher up, and they're not really what I would call like a true mezzanine balcony situation. It's almost like boxes, so you can view on the video where those seats are located too. Another thing about this production is that there's a DJ involved, and that's one place I wish they maybe used the DJ more. He's present at the beginning and again in the beginning of the second act, but the rest of the time he's not really used because there is an orchestra that's live. Productions, especially if they're an equity production, requires live music. So we wouldn't want that to go away, of course, but I somehow feel like the DJ could be incorporated more in some respects. Not sure how, but that's just one of the things I left with. The other sort of downfall of this production is that the sound was sometimes off or hard to hear, and it just depended on who it was and what it was. Most of the songs came through really well. A lot of the speaking, and there's almost like an MC character, was muddy or soft or almost crackly sometimes. So I think that's, just something to know when you're going in. So I mentioned Andre de Shields, who is definitely a standout in this performance. But I wanted to mention a few others. Robert Silk Mason plays Mr. Mistopheles, and they are amazing every time they take the stage. The way they dance is really breathtaking. So they have long lines with arm and leg extensions. And I'm looking at the playbill. They're from Columbia, South Carolina, and then of course went to Juilliard for dance. And again, this is somebody who I think is worth going and seeing while this is on. The next standout is Tempress Chastity Moore, and they play Grisabella. That's an example of someone being from the ballroom world and being cast in this show, and they do an excellent job. Another ballroom icon is Junior LaBeija from the House of LaBeija, and they play a predominant part as well. And if you have watched Paris is Burning, they're the MC. And then I just really like Teddy Wilson Jr., who plays Syllabub. I don't know if I said that right, but they were just full of joy and happened to be interacting with us a lot, in our part of where we were sitting. Another person you might recognize is Sidney James Harcourt, who plays Rum Tum Tugger and has a couple of different sort of solo dances, and he's really great in this too. So to wrap it up, if you want to get out of the heat for a little bit and see some shows that are different than a lot of shows you're seeing, I definitely recommend going to Oh Mary, that's open through September 12th, and Cats the Jellicle Ball, open through August 11th. You won't be disappointed. So with that, I say grab your fan, grab a cocktail, and continue to support Broadway and off-Broadway when you can. Cheers.